Hi, welcome to another episode of the CTO-CTO podcast. In today's episode of the Pioneers series, our guest is Nishant Patel, the founder and CTO at Contentstack, a leading CMS and content experience platform. Nishant is a technology visionary with an extensive track record of spotting and setting industry trends and creating software products that power digital transformation and further the rise of the API economy. Today, Piotr speaks to Nishant about the beginnings of cloud and API-first technology, building products inside services companies, about how Contentstack became a headless CMS leader in just a few years, and together they also try to define the recipe for success. Tune in.
Hello, everyone. In today's interview, we are going to talk about the API-first iPaaS, Mac Alliance, and headless content management. My guest is Nishant Patel, founder and CTO of Contentstack, a leading content management system and content experience platform. Previously, Nishant was a founder, CEO, and CTO of digital experience platform Build.io, which was acquired by German software powerhouse Software AG. Hi, Nishant. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, thanks, Piotr. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Nishant, how your career in the software engineering started?
It started in 2000. So I went to Ohio State University, did computer science. And at that time, this is kind of the late 90s. And so it was .com kind of era. So, there was a lot of excitement there. And I grew up in Ohio, and then right after I graduated, basically I moved to San Francisco, and so just took a job at a very small startup, and that's how it kind of started. Yeah.
How do you remember the .com bubble bursting? Like you were in the eye of the cyclone, right? San Francisco 2000.
It was, and I had graduated March 2000, and I moved to San Francisco. So at that time, everything was still pretty active. The hype cycle was still going on. So I joined the startup, and we built a product in like a few months. I was the only engineer when they started that, and in a few months, I remember it just literally overnight, everything just disappeared. The market crashed. I think it was like September, October is when it crashed. I also, the company basically shut down where I worked. And so I was also looking for a job when everyone else also was looking for a job.
Yeah, tough times. Yeah.
So that was interesting times. Yeah, it was very interesting times.
Gotcha. So your next engagement was engineering at services company, right? You were just doing projects for the next couple of years, or you joined some product company?
I did join a product company so this is sometime in December of 2000. Gotcha. I joined a company called TIBCO, which was known for integration. And so I joined that company and as an engineer in the engineering department. Gotcha. And I was there for 7 years, basically. So, they hired me to build some knowledge base, like a side application for engineering and professional services. And so I basically spent 7 years at TIBCO after that.
Gotcha. And then you founded Raw Engineering, right, in 2007. What was the initial idea for the company you founded?
Yeah, so basically, TIBCO was very focused on integration, and if you think about early 2000s, their companies still had systems, in their own data centers, right? This is pre-cloud. So TIBCO used to do a lot of, basically created integration software to integrate all these big ERP systems that companies would have. And so I had a lot of integration knowledge. And TIBCO also, at that time did really well with a product called BusinessWorks, TIBCO BusinessWorks, which was drag and drop integration and things like that, right? So in 2006, while I was at TIBCO, I came across something called AWS. Yep. And I quickly signed up for it. I, did a few POCs, really liked what they had. But at the time, TIBCO was not really focused on cloud or anything like that. It was still pretty new, right? And looking back, if you think about it, big companies basically just discounted the cloud. Like, who is going to put their stuff in the cloud, right? But I fell in love with it. And also, I always wanted to start my own company. I had a company in college that I started and built a product, but never knew how to take it to market. So that was still the dream for me. So I just literally quit. And the idea at that time that I had was like, can I take integration and provide it as a service? And, they used to call it application as a service or something like that back in the days instead of SaaS. And Salesforce was one of the main players there. So I was like, hey, can we take integration in kind of the same way? And so that was the initial idea. And I literally just quit without really having any plans to how to go about building a company.
Interesting times. I remember around 2005, 2006, I first heard of virtualization, VMware. AWS was kind of, beta invitation only, and then, public beta, but nobody was using actually it on production. So you started adopting this cloud first, cloud native very early, which is really, was bold move, I guess, but it was definitely the good move. And you started building the raw engineering as a services company around cloud integration, right? Correct? So you were integrating all those services, building the apps.
Yeah, so raw engineering, it started out, I always meant to build a product. It just so happened that, I ran into a couple of engineers that, I took a vacation, went to India. No plans of setting up an office in India, but I ended up there just for vacation. And I did a seminar, and a couple of college kids said, hey, can I join you in building this product? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that's how it all.
How many people have you hired at the peak, at the raw engineering?
I think we were up to like 250 people at some point.
Wow,
yeah,
awesome. Really nice.
So the services, and it started out as a product idea, but in order to pay everyone, we were a bunch of engineers, just me and a couple of guys. So we're like, all right, let's start taking some services contracts. And it just kind of grew from there. So the services company basically grew from the initial two folks.
Gotcha. I really like this story. You told me on the pre-call we had preparing for this interview, because actually out of this raw engineering, you built two products, right? Contentstack and Build.io, great successes, huge successes. Tell us the story. I really love this story.
Yeah, it's so again, me being a product guy, the services was there to help the customers and also bring in the money, so we could build our products. But we got busy with the services side, so the initial product idea kind of just went onto the side. And while we were servicing customers, we were helping customers, the early adopters of the cloud. We were helping them move to the cloud. And then 2008, 2009, the mobile app kind of stuff started. So we started doing mobile apps. And, just from servicing the clients, we figured out there's a bunch of other opportunities. And, what we would do is like, okay, as we were building these mobile apps, we thought, there's a better way to build the mobile apps, because like 60, 70% of everything in a mobile app is common, like the same database, same calls, things like that. So we said, can we make a cloud service that, all the mobile app developer has to do is download the SDK and start building a mobile app, right? So we ended up building an MBaaS. So we were pioneered in the MBaaS kind of space. And if you remember in 2010, 2011, there were other players as well, like Parse, which got bought by Facebook. Yeah. And there was Kinvey, which eventually got Kinvey, which was like, got acquired by someone else. And then we also had an MBaaS. So
MBaaS is mobile backend as a service to expand this abbreviation.
Correct. Yeah. And it's API first, right? That's all in the cloud. The scaling and everything is taken care of by the MBaaS. So over the years, we ended up building a few of these products. Some of them we took it to market. Some we couldn't. It just became, it's just some skunk projects and things like that. So we got really good at building SaaS products. eventually we got to Contentstack and Built.io.
Absolutely, that's great story. How is to build the products inside the services company? I mean, it's all about the tensions, right? Because on the one hand, you need to do the services to earn the money for for building the products, and on the other hand, the products are not contributing positively to the P&L, and they are rather investments. How you dealt with that, with this contradiction? Yeah,
it's a great question. That's a great question. I think, looking back, I think you talk to a lot of the services companies. They're like, okay, we can't do products. We just can't do products because there's too
Absolutely, yeah. This is always the story. I heard that it is even a story about my company, Divante. Prior, we built actually the products, Open Layout and View Storefront, but we were thinking just like that, like it's not for us. Huh?
It is, and it is a struggle, right? It's like you said, like what you just pointed out. The priorities are different, and you have to be really, strict about keeping those two things separate. And I didn't know any better. Just I like building products. I like to see where the technology trends are going, and the way we started it, was just we will say, hey, there's 2 or 3 guys that are not on any projects. Gotcha. Let's try to build something, for a couple of months. Not have like a crazy long-term plan. Just say, can we build a quick solution? And when we build a solution, you like it, and then it's like, all right, let's give it a couple of more months. Let's give it a couple more months. And then quickly you realize you have something. And then what we did was I would take all the profits from the services company and just make sure that the product company is completely focused. So we would not use the product team on any services engagements. So we got really good at that over time, and that worked for us. Yeah.
Was it just, the organic growth, or did you have some external investors for the products?
No, it was completely organic.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I myself, it was all organic. Of course, me and then the team spent just incredible amount of time trying to get all these things going. But it was all organic.
That's really amazing. Congratulations. I think it's really, really tough. But you found the traction, and actually the products you built there grew up rapidly. I mean, Build.io was recognized as a 2018 Gartner Magic Quadrant vendor, and a cloud-based, API-first enterprise suite for that accelerates the digital transformation. So if I look at the success of the products you built, I'm just wondering what's the recipe for success?
I think it was just kind of just keep trying new things, right? And keep pushing, use whatever you have and leverage the heck out of it. So I would just say that it's, and also, like, as you keep doing more, you get more ideas. I'll give you an example with the Build.io and Contentstack. They were all still within raw engineering, and we did a pretty big deal with this customer for the Build.io product. And at some time, we were talking about even acquisition, and they found it very hard to acquire a services company that has products,
absolutely,
right? But we ended up doing a pretty big license deal. And it was clear to us that after kind of going through those motions, it was clear to us to split the companies, to carve out the products from the services company. And when we did that, we basically, just crazy multiples in terms of, each company value and things like that, right? So, those things just came about just by trying and pushing as much as you could on all the fronts.
We're gonna get into Contentstack and in a moment. Just one more notion from my side. Like yesterday, I was recording interview with Art Boyd of Miracle, marketplace software. Great episode. And he told me something I think is also appropriate here, because I asked him, Art, how you did this, because he achieved the Sales Club Award for fulfilling the sales plans for 5 years in a row, which is just amazing. And he told me it's not about what I did in this period; it's all about what I did before. 3 or 4 years before. And I think that this is exactly the story of this products we are talking here, because you were into the cloud business long before anyone else even started thinking about it. API first platform before it became a trend. So the timing was great. And I think that's, really visionary approach. I'm really amazed what you achieve, Nishant. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, there's definitely some truth to that, right? Like, you don't necessarily have all the insights as
Absolutely.
You're building these things, but you see that there's these new tools, which is the cloud and this and that. This is, I'm talking 2009, 2010. And you apply the same, you take the new tools and apply it to the same problems, and you come out with something
Absolutely.
amazing, right? And so the MBAS was kind of like our play. Like, we had tons of people deployed a bunch of apps on our MBAS, and we learned how to do API first cloud SaaS service, right? Yeah. This is 2010. And from that we came, we'll talk about Contentstack, but that's when we incubated Contentstack. So Contentstack actually came out at least within the services company in 2011, and it pioneered the headless CMS concept in 2011, because our customers were asking for, hey, how do I manage my content on mobile app?
Gotcha.
And so we just created a version to let them do that, and it was all SaaS based. So that became the headless CMS. So yeah, it's just kind of, you keep learning. You apply the new tools on the same problems, and you get something new.
Yeah, that is another contradiction for me. Like, being services company, you are in really great place to discover all the needs they have for products. Bring the tools that are really, unique and needed by the market, which is great for product market fit. But the contradiction is that it's very hard to build this product, as we discussed. You finally decided to solve by Build.io to Software AG. I'm wondering what was the reason for this move?
Yeah, so Build.io, like I said, Build.io was our original idea, right? 2007, we wanted to build integration platform in the cloud. We didn't get to it, at least to start building it, till 2013. And then we built it, and we liked what we saw, and the market was kind of ready at that time. So if we had been successful in 2007, the product market fit would not have been there. Taking it forward, I think there were so many SaaS services out there and so many integration challenges in the cloud world that it was a perfect timing in 2013 to start. And so what ended up happening is, once we carved out the product companies outside of the services, we had to make a decision, because our management also got split, right? So I took Build.io as I became the CEO of that company. A bunch of other management got split into raw engineering. So raw engineering still exists. The services company still exists. So a few folks went there, and then a few folks went to Contentstack. And, part of all these companies, we had to decide, do we want to go raise capital for two product companies and also keep the services running, right? So it just happened that we decided, and the market was there, and people were looking for an iPaaS, and so we decided to basically sell Build.io, and Contentstack, of course, went on a very different path.
Gotcha. Thank you for this explanation. Really interesting story. And decision. I think the very good decision. When I look at the Contentstack, I see that you pick up slightly different way than with Build.io, because you recently acquired like $31 million USD A round financing for the product. by the way, congratulations. Great news. I think it's great news.
Thank you.
So the question is, how does it differ from Build.io, and how do you plan for the further expansion for Contentstack? Because I see that the plans are slightly different. You just push the accelerate to the metal. What's the vision for this product?
Yeah, so I think Contentstack, so Build.io kind of had a different path. We had to, we made the right decision at that time, but we see that iPaaS right now is absolutely needed, right? So our competitors at that time, companies like Workato and Tray, we were leading in terms of, just kind of feature functionality capabilities, all sorts of stuff. But, you see now today, right, like just 3 years out, iPaaS is absolutely needed. And it's even bigger than what it was 3 years ago. And it's going to be bigger because the integration challenges are just going to be massive and massive going forward is what I think. So for Contentstack, I kind of have the same, I think it's going to be, it'll keep growing the whole content management space with sort of the new way of doing it, right? All in the cloud native. Then we thought, okay, what's the best way to accelerate this growth, right? And capital always helps. And so we went down the VC path on Contentstack, and I had never raised, even though I was running companies since 2007, I had never gone down the path of raising capital. And while I was running the businesses, I didn't really think much about VCs at that time.
Gotcha.
Because
you were focused on business and products.
I was focused on business products, and also like looking back, I feel like I come from a family that is in businesses, like traditional businesses. And so in my mind, it's you always just think of revenue and expenses and profits and loss, right? And the whole VC world was very different.
The best investors are your clients. I think it's a very healthy approach.
Yep, exactly. So this has been pretty interesting. I think to answer your question, I think Contentstack we're really excited about. We've seen tremendous growth. We're seeing customers, the ones that adopt this technology, they just benefit from it tremendously. I still feel like there's the companies that are kind of getting on this path, they're still early adopters, and it's just now kind of moving towards, kind of mainstream. So there's just tremendous potential for growth in this area.
Absolutely. If you are talking about the adoption, the next question I have in my mind is, what are the key use cases for Contentstack, the best use cases? Where does it suit best?
It's for the digital transformation. And digital transformation is this, it encompasses a lot of things. But for companies that content's everything today, right? You have to manage content, you have to create content, you have to deliver content, and constantly keep changing content. So in terms of use cases, we drive digital content on websites, on mobile apps, on digital signages, any channel you can think of where you want to deliver content, right? So we give customers the tools, all in the cloud, right? They don't have to set up, they don't have to maintain, they don't have to upgrade, none of that stuff. All the benefits of the cloud. Customers basically use our platform to manage and deliver content across various different channels. So web is definitely big. So the web use case, which is running your websites, your e-commerce websites, any content that you can think of, that's massive. Mobile apps is massive. And then, we're seeing upward growth around, digital signages and other devices and things like that.
Gotcha. So, trying to let the folks manage all their channels within one single tool.
Yep.
That makes perfect sense. It's still Mac architecture, microservices, API, cloud native, and headless. You are doing Mac even before it got its name, I guess, a long time already. What are the pros and cons of this architecture?
Yeah, I feel like, from a pure kind of architecture perspective, tech architecture perspective, you have to go mock. Because what that ends up doing is it lets the businesses move really fast and pivot, as the business conditions change, right? You want the technology stack to also be able to pivot as you kind of see the market shifting, and the market's shifting like anything nowadays. Think about the pandemic, like it just literally just changed the path of a lot of companies, right? So you got to have your tech stack that is flexible to be able to take that. And I think just from my experience over the last 20 years as a engineer, building kind of this microservices approach, right? So I come from an integration background. It's all about, we used to call it SOA, service-oriented architecture. This is kind of the same thing. It's you build these small services, and then you figure out how to make those work together and act as one system, right? And the benefit of that is, you can rip and replace whatever you want. If there's something new come out, you replace that service, and you can still continue to do what you were doing, right? So the pros is, from a microservices approach, you can quickly just iterate in sort of an agile way and keep up with the tech as well as the market, right? Now, API first and headless, what that gives you is, with the digital, experiences that everyone is used to nowadays, you need to be able to quickly iterate on the experience side as well, right? So if you have technologies that kind of merge the experience and the tech stack together, it's very hard to move those things, fast, right? So you want to decouple it, and that's what kind of that gives you. So you're decoupling the experience part, which is the front end, from all the back end stuff, right? So that, again, API first, headless is kind of the way to go, and cloud native. And the reason I say cloud native is there's traditional companies that have built software for a long time, especially in the content management space. Those things were built for the web world back in the 2000s, right? Today, it's very different. You can't, just take an old traditional CMS and throw it in the cloud and just call it cloud. It's not that. You have to build from scratch, from ground up, in a microservices way. And how that software is delivered is also very important, right? So the cloud native has to be in the blood from day one.
I was just wondering, Nishant, isn't that flexibility and this loose coupling you mentioned about the microservices mostly and the coupled architecture, isn't it at the price of the complexity? Like, you haven't answered yet the cons. You only said about the pros. Maybe this would be a street. Yeah.
No, you pointed out.
I see this complexity as the biggest cons of this whole architecture, because if you like to add some, let's say, horizontal feature, right? Feature which is on the edge of all the services you have. For example, you change the way you manage prices or something like this. Not sure if prices is the best example, but let's stick to this one. So you need to change the pricing microservice. You need to change the front end. You need to change the order management microservice because it also operates on prices. All this kind of subsequent modules. Isn't this the biggest cause of the whole approach?
Yes, I completely agree with you. So with anything that's good, there's definitely some bad with it, right? So I always say it's not just the technology, it's also the people and the processes, right? So you got to have the agile kind of methodology in place. The processes, the people, all kind of have to align and also manage the dependencies, right? So in the case of price, you know what services it's going to hit. And then, have an agile team that basically goes and hits those services and updates. So it's not just like buying a bunch of technology and it's just going to solve your problem. It's the whole people and process that you have to put in place. Yeah, I would say another con that I still haven't gotten the head around is, before when you go to one vendor, you get all these services, right, with one vendor. I think one of the cons, and it will get solved, I think, from consolidations and things like that. But one of the cons is you have multi-vendors that you have to manage, right? And that becomes a little impractical for especially large organizations that have slow cycles around procurement and legal and all that sort of stuff, right? And so, there's not, and also support. Like you have to go to 10, 20 vendors that you're using to do one service, and you have to, who do you have to go to for support? So those challenges are still there, but I think companies have found ways on how to deal with that, and you'll see that more and more. Like I said, it's more people, processes as well. So you figure out your legal processes, you figure out your procurement processes to manage and maintain these multiple vendors. But once you do that, you get superpowers. In terms of moving as fast as the market moves.
That's absolutely true, and good point. To be perfectly honest, I need to add one pro on what you just said, because you said the number of vendors is a con. Of course it is, but on the other hand, back then, a few years ago, you maybe even had one vendor, one agency, or your internal IT team supporting, maintaining the whole stuff, but the cost of ownership, I mean the maintenance, hosting, everything, were tremendous, right? It was a lot of money spent just to keep this thing up and running. And right now, you have SLA. Okay, it's different SLA per different service, but it is something that works. So I guess, it still makes a lot of sense. And as you said, those legal, procurement, other processes are something that we can figure out. But the core value is that you are using those Lego bricks that just works and fits perfectly well. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Piotr. So just to add to that, like if you have one vendor, you do get, back in the days, you get a lot of benefits because they're giving you everything. But then at the same time, the vendor also knows that you're so much dependent on them that they can just do whatever they want, right? So in today's world with the mark architecture, you can replace a service fairly easily, right? And so the vendor also knows that, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep you as a customer and listen to you as well. Yeah. So it benefits you there.
That's another point, that the services are getting more and more into, let's say, a commoditization process. So that they're becoming like utilities, like and power companies or water supplies, whatever. You can choose the e-commerce platform from one to another, like theoretically, right? But on the other hand, if it works very well, and there is this API which is very flexible, what's the sense of making the changes? That's different story, because with the monolithical systems, platforms, or CMSs, you always had this temptation that maybe we will upgrade for improving the user experience or whatever. And now it doesn't matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That it's on the back end, right? The water is in the pipes and everything is fine. So,
and to that point, like you change the back end, people will not, the end customer will not even realize it. It's not a big heavy lift and things like that. And I actually think, this is great, right? Like the companies that figure out how to properly implement the mock tech stack plus the people and the processes, I like to work with those companies because they're any business changes, like they're all the feature requests and all these things that come to us, we're listening, right? We're very close listening to the customers. I think what ended up happening in the monoliths, they just, because of the complexity and this and that, like, customer can ask for a feature and it'll take like 3 years, 4 years for something new to come in, and business has moved on, right? You don't even care at that point. Like right now, I think it's keeping us on our toes as service providers to listen to our customers, because we know that, there could be, they can just replace us, right? And I think it's awesome. It's win-win situation on both sides.
Absolutely, as you said. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay. let's maybe get to more general questions. First question is how your role changed. Like we discussed a lot of different things here. Your role becoming like you started as software engineer, then more into products, then founding another companies, raising money. Yeah, I guess your role changed a lot. What's your current focus?
Yeah, so I've put on a lot of hats, and just like any startups, you're doing anything and everything, and I did that for a long time. My comfort zone is always the tech side, right? Like I love just focusing on tech and just working with the engineers and all that, and I've done that over the years, but the last 10 years have been that I've also had to focus a lot on the management side, but now. We have, teams across, we have management folks across, great colleagues. And for me, my focus right now primarily is being kind of the CTO for Contentstack, right? So the product vision, the product delivery, product strategy. So I'm primarily focused on that. And also on the services side, so I still play the CTO role at Raw Engineering, and we're still incubating new products there. I'm more focused on the technology side right now than what I was a few years ago.
Sounds great. That's cool. Do you see any rising trend you think is gonna to change the way we build the software in the upcoming years? Of course, Mac is the thing. Of course, that's one thing. It's already changing the way we build software. Do you see something else?
I actually, I spent my 20 years in San Francisco, so I was on the kind of the bleeding edge of everything. But then as we got acquired by Software AG, and there's so many companies in the world still dealing and talking about moving to the cloud, which was like mind blowing to me that still companies are skeptical of moving to the cloud, things like that. So I feel like I think that move towards adopting new technologies, especially with the pandemic now, like there's no other option. You have to adopt all these new technologies, right? And I actually see everything changing, right? In terms of just development, you had to set up all sorts of environments and this and that locally on your machine, and before you can start writing some code. Nowadays, it's all in the cloud. Even the editors are in the cloud, right? The sandboxes are in the cloud. Yeah. GitHub is in the cloud. To get up and running and develop something and deploy, you don't need like a massive team. It's all just, there's a bunch of cloud services and you just connect to those and then just start, code, build, deploy. So that whole thing is just, it's fascinating. I think that's going to continue. That trend is going to continue. I think the serverless stuff, which is fascinating. I remember, Amazon coming out with the Lambda service like early, I think late 2000s or early, 2011, 2012. And at that time, even the guys that were adopting the cloud or were already on the cloud were saying, oh, why would you run a function in the cloud, right? And fast forward to today, like you have applications completely serverless, right? So that trend that's awesome, and it's going to continue. And Amazon and even Google and Microsoft, they've done really good job in building the tooling around the function as a service, right? So from the development perspective, I think there's a lot of stuff changing. And also, I also see, from an education perspective, you don't have to learn the whole stack from like bits and bytes all the way up to like programming and delivering. Like, nowadays, like programmers just start writing some code without even thinking about what goes on, in the background. Yeah. So that also, like the education side of things is also changing from a software development perspective. So yeah, it's all good. And I feel like, just the cloud adoption, the microservices, I feel like the SaaS, so the landscape has blown up and it's going to continue to blow up. There's thousands and thousands of SaaS companies, right? Like 10, 15 years ago, there were only a few. So that trend is going to continue to go. So if you think about that, then integration is key, right? the built.io software. Maybe I shouldn't have sold it. It's still going to be key. The data side is massive. Companies like Snowflake and Segment and all that, I think they're going to continue to grow because the data explosion. All these SaaS companies are creating so much data, and customers that use all these SaaS companies as a mock architecture, they want to collect data and visualize it. And make get some insights. So the data part is also massive, and it'll continue to grow. So there's tons of trends that I see that it's looking pretty good.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, we are at the end of our discussion. Thank you, Nishant, for your time. It was great talking with you. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Piotr. Thanks for having me here.
Guys, looking for your feedback and follow-up questions to Nishant. We're going to try to answer. Put them in the comments, and see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Piotr. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the CTO-CTO podcast. Make sure you subscribe us and check out our website, CTO-CTO.com, where you can find all of our previous episodes and filter by category and find exactly what you're interested in. See you next week.